I won't run from the crushing. I'll hold on through the pain. What I lose means nothing next to what I gain. Come tear down every idol, so this heart won't stray. Don't let me stray. I just wanna be your sanctuary, a dwelling place for grace and mercy. Keep sifting me till.
Boker Tov, welcome to the Threshing floor here on lamnetwork.tv. My name is Darryl Weinberg, and this is the show where we discuss all things that are before us and determine what is of truth and what is of error. And that is what happened on the threshing floor, that the wheat was separated from the chaff. And want to thank everybody for joining us. This is probably one of the more important episodes that I've done, because as I was researching this, there was a lot of stuff that I became aware of and the power of what we're going to be discussing. And so want to get right into it. You can catch more of our programming right here on lamnetwork.tv, but you can also go to our website at alttnmessianic.com, and you can check our Rumble and YouTube channels where we post our our different shows, and you're going to get the full gamut of the what God is trying to say to us in these times. So, for many people, as I'm just silencing my phone here, we just had the FIFA World Cup, and it has ended. And, there's a lot of people out there who are thinking there is something a little off about this. There was some great inconsistencies in some of the officiating, and something just didn't seem kosher. And what I wanted to discuss today was not just about, what was going on. Listen, sports fixing has been going on since the beginning. But the question we got to ask ourselves, why? Why is there fixing of sport? Why is there corruption and everything else? When I was in Uganda last year, the Lord told me that the reason why there was so much corruption and stealing and violence and everything else in a particular industry that we were looking into is because he says most of it is being done illegally. And so therefore, he couldn't bless what was done in the darkness. And he says, he was calling us to get things set up and to get activity going in this industry. But he says, if you're going to do it the right way, if you're going to do it, you have to do it the right way. And so it's very much the same thing here, that when it comes to professional sports, and listen, I'm not condemning anybody who is a sports fan, because listen, sports is a lot of fun. And I was a huge sports fan. From 1982 to 1993, I would take Shoppers Drug Mart is a major drugstore chain in Canada. And they would produce a Blue Jay calendar every year. And I would not only get that calendar, but I started in 1982 marking every score of every game. And I did that for 12 years, up until the Blue Jays won the last World Series in 1993. And then after the 94 season was cut because of the strike, I kind of lost interest in that. But I was a huge fan. And I was a huge hockey fan too. I love the game of hockey. I love playing baseball, and loved watching it too. But when you start to kind of dig into it, you begin to realize that all is not as it seems. And so we got to dive right into this because it's going to be tough to cover everything in the 1 hour. We may even have to do part 2 of this. So what I wanted to talk about is as we, all right, so okay, here we go. I want to give you a couple of quotes. Now, H.G. Wells wrote the book Modern Utopia, and he was actually an occultist. And he says, our founders made no peace with this organization of public sports. They did not spend their lives to secure for all men and women on the earth freedom, health, and leisure in order that we might waste lives in such folly. This is H.G. Wells saying that leisure and professional sports is folly. The founding fathers fought for freedom, gave their lives for it, and yet here we are wasting our lives. Alan Watts says at the time, sports was something that children, school children, were into. Adults became adults and grew onto adult things. So it was unimaginable at the time that people would actually believe that there's a need for adult sports and entertainment, never mind having arenas built across the world. And so you got thousands upon tens of thousands of people who gather into these arenas, and we're going to get into the design of arenas shortly. But and they'll paint themselves, and they'll buy jerseys and stuff. I have a sweatshirt from the 1993 Blue Jays World Series back-to-back wins. I still wear it. William Cooper, who was a revealer of what kind of goes on behind the scenes, although it's questionable as to whether he was controlled opposition. But he basically said, professional sports, it's the Roman circus. What does the emperor do when people become restive? And when the people are asking questions? When the people don't like the policies of the emperor, he sends them to the circus. He creates a circus, fills a giant coliseum, and begins to throw the Christians to the lions. And he has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world. So pretty damning. Yeah. Very, very, very convicting. So let's get into where the origins of sports are, because we just kind of believe that, someone had this great idea. Let's start looking into who some of these people were. Baseball rules were codified by not Abner Doubleday. That was more of a baseball myth. But a guy by the name of Alex Cartwright, who was a major contributor to the creating of modern baseball rules. And who was this guy? Well, he lived in mainland U.S., moved to Hawaii, and he became the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry in Hawaii. So the founder of one of the founders of the rules of baseball was a high-ranking Freemason. Now, Abner Doubleday, there wasn't any indication that he is tangentially associated with baseball. And there's no proof that he was a confirmed member of the lodge, but he was part of the Theosophical Society that was started by Helena Blavatsky, who was a 33rd degree Freemason. She was a Satanist. And the mentor, I guess, of Alice Bailey, who started Lucifer Trust. One of the most famous members of the Theosophical Society is a man by the name of L. Frank Baum, who was none other than the creator of The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is actually an occultic film. So there you have the origins of baseball. James Naismith was born in Altamont, Ontario. Western Ontario, and he studied at McGill University in phys ed, and he actually went to Presbyterian College in Montreal. He moved down to the US, and he needed to come up with an indoor game to keep gym class busy. And it was based off of this thing called Duck on a Rock, which is this ball that was on like a tree stump or something like that. The biography posted, and this biography was posted by the Grand Lodge of Ohio, who said of him, Naismith's ingenuity, a force that birthed the game of basketball, reflects the spirit of Freemasonry, a spirit rooted in creativity, enlightenment, and the pursuit of higher purpose. So, major professional baseball, or the game of baseball today, started by the Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Freemasonry, James Naismith, who was a good guy by all accounts. I mean, he fought for desegregation at a time, in the 1920s and 30s where it wasn't popular. He was a big advocate of the allowing of blacks into mainstream society, and fought to have them in, when it came to basketball, having them play. But he was part of the Masonic Lodge. And then we come to the the holy grail of U.S. sports, professional football. Walter Camp took rugby and soccer and created American football. Who was Walter Camp? And this was back in 1888, a very interesting year. Walter Camp was actually a member of Skull and Bones, as well as so Skull and Bones is the most famous secret society at Yale University, and its most famous alumni are the Bush family. So George Herbert Walker and George W. Bush are both alumni of Skull and Bones. And Walter Camp's son and his brother-in-law were also members. Now, what he did is he took rugby, which I think had 15 players. I'm not really entirely sure, but this is what I've read, and reduced it to number 11. 11 is a very, very significant number. We're going to get into that. The ball is also spotted on the 15-yard line. So you have 15 yards, plus you have 10 in the end zone, and then you have the spotter who is 8 yards further. So you have 10, you have 15, and then you have 8. And what is that total for all you math whizzes out there? 33. The hash marks are about a little more than 18 feet apart, which is 3 sixes. So anybody you ever see doing this is usually flashing the 666 sign. And when the referee, when there's a score in football, what do the referees do? They raise their hands like this, which is the sign of the Master Mason. The ref jerseys are black and white striped, which is duality. You'll see that on Masonic floors with the black and white checkerboard. You'll see that prominently within Alice in Wonderland, a very occultic book. And interestingly enough, the Super Bowl always starts at 3:30 on the day that it is played. So tell me there's nothing involved in that. The Super Bowl is the day of the year with the highest amount of human trafficking, and many commercials you'll find on the Super Bowl involve pizza ads. And pizza, of course, is a symbol within the occult regarding pedophilia. So nastiness all around. So there you have the three main sports within the United States: baseball, basketball, and football, all started by occultists and Freemasons. Now you're starting to get a picture of where some of this spiritual energy is coming from. Now, English football's association with Freemasonry goes back to 1863. So it's interesting that a lot of the sports all started around the same time. And this was a time of high occultic activity because you have a lot of the cults the major cults that started in the U.S. that began around there. Seventh-day Adventism and the Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saints, and also the Jehovah's Witnesses all started around between the 1840s and the 1860s. So there's a lot of spiritual activity going on. You can see it manifesting in false religions, but also into now the creation of the professional sports class. So English football's association with Freemasonry actually got started in 1863 when the Football Association was formed at the Freemasons Tavern in London on Great Queen Street in London, England. Now it's called the New Connaught Rooms next door to the Freemasons Hall. And after the very first match under the new football governing rules way back in January of 1864, a toast was drunk to success to football, irrespective of class or creed. So, you know, Freemasonry, what is the outward presentation of it is all about the brotherhood of men and the increase or the good men becoming better. According to Freemasons for Dummies, association football was born in 1863 at the Freemasons Arms Pub near London's Covent Garden at 81, 80, and 82 Long Acre. 6 meetings were held at the pub to decide on rules, 6 being an interesting number, and structure. And the meetings ended with a split between the new football association. Soccer is actually said to be a truncated version of association, and the proponents of different rules that actually became rugby. So 11 clubs met at the hall and decided that there were 11 players on the field. So remember how I said Walter Camp reduced the number of rugby players in American football. So you have 7 in the front and then 4 on the back, totaling 11. And why 11? Why is 11? So 11, 22, and 33 are very significant numbers within Freemasonry. And and the reason is that 10 is the number of perfection within Kabbalah. And 11 is divine conflict or tension requiring a resolution. So 10 is perfect, but 11 is divine conflict or tension requiring resolution. What is the whole purpose of sports? It's you have this tension between the two teams, and there is a need for there to be a winner. And that tension is resolved with the scoring of goals or baskets or, you know, points or whatever. The entire soccer field is designed as a temple with the ball as a sphere, which in Pythagorean theory represents the divine. So the very layout of the stadium itself is really modeled after a temple. So if you've ever wondered why people almost worship the teams that they vote for, because when you think of it, why is it people get so excited? I remember when the Blue Jays were playing in the World Series, and my son, you know, said to me after one of the games, I think the Blue Jays had won one of the games, and he said, "Oh, we did such and such." And I said, "We didn't do anything. We weren't even involved." You know, we take ownership of this tribalistic identity with people who aren't part of, like, none of the Blue Jays who played in this year's World Series are from Toronto. I don't think any of them were even Canadian. I think it's been a long time since the Jays actually had any player from Canada on the roster. I remember, way back in the 90s when the Jays were winning World Series, and we had Rob Butler, who was a Canadian, and his brother, Rich Butler. I mean, it was exciting for us. But here you got guys who are basically playing children's games for vast amounts of money. I was just reading this morning that the Patriots have signed, I think it was a quarterback, for a 4-year contract at something like $34 million a year. Like, what? For playing a game? But what has become our idols? And what is driving all of this? This is the question that we got to ask ourselves. Because we've got people who do great service to society, teachers, for instance, nurses, people who impact our lives every day for the positive, and yet we pay them subsistence wages. My wife was telling me that a teacher in Bulgaria doesn't even make enough to pay rent, much less having any kind of lifestyle. And yet we got people who play a game for 6 months, 8 months of the year, who contribute nothing to us other than get us emotionally attached to these things, who are getting paid millions of dollars a year. Entertainers, people who star in movies that they, musicians, and they produce things that entertain us and distract us, and they're getting paid obscene amounts of money. Why? Because this is where our values are placed. But there's something that's got to be driving all of this. This isn't happening in a vacuum. And what I'm trying to explain right now is what that is. So you've got the soccer field that's designed as a temple. The ball in the middle is a sphere, and the sphere represents the divine. The two trophies, the trophy is two players morphed together holding the ball in ascension. So let me show you a picture of the football, the World Cup trophy. Which is it here? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so here you have, let's make this a little bigger. So here you have two people that are kind of morphing together, which is very occultic. It's kind of the merging of everybody into one. That's what the whole Tower of Babel was about. And why the European Union, their symbol is the recreation of the Tower of Babel. It's just a bunch of bricks. See, when God told Abraham and the people of old, and even Solomon, to build an altar to him, he says, don't use cut stones. Don't use cut stones. They have to be natural. Why? Because we're all individual. What the enemy wants to do is he wants to create us into his image, but God already created us in his image and wants us to be unique in of ourselves. So you can't use instruments on it to modify it. So when the enemy puts things together, it's so that we're all one, and the enemy looks at us as just something that's useful. That's why we have human resources departments in companies now. We're not resources to be discarded when we're done. We're precious in God's sight, and we're useful to him first and foremost because of the fact that he wants a relationship with us. What we end up doing for him comes out of that relationship. But Satan doesn't have a relationship with people. People are only useful to him to get his job. And the primary reason why Satan uses people is because he can't kill them all off. God won't let him do that. That would be his primary desire. So he's going to use us, but when we're done, after being used, we get discarded and usually destroyed. And that's the sad reality. And even people at the highest echelons of satanic worship in the world, the high priests, once they're done, and Satan laughs at them because he hates them, even though they served him faithfully their whole lives. So here you have the ball, these two people kind of morphing together, and then the ball is in ascension, very occultic. Okay? So let's get to the World Cup now. because there was some really, really bizarre things that went on behind the scenes that most people didn't know about. And if you've ever wondered why there's this frenzy where, you got tens of thousands of people in stadiums, but then you've got millions upon millions of people around the world. I mean, after every single World Cup, you got people from that particular country that are running around waving flags, honking horns. Toronto has had at one time, I don't know if that's still the case, the largest Italian community outside of Italy in the world. But like decades ago, there was like 700,000 Italians in Toronto, big Italian community. And so when Italy won the World Cup in 1982, Toronto was bedlam. And then they won it again in 2006. And people running around and honking horns and, having a gold time. What is drawing them into it? Because when you think about it, so what? But there's a spiritual draw behind that that's pulling these people in. And so you have millions of people. The World Cup is literally watched by billions of people. There's 8 billion people in the world, and at least two of them are following along and watching this stuff, gathering together. Where's it all coming from? There's a spiritual hook that's drawing us in. And when you think about the Masonic origins of all of these sports, soccer, baseball, football, basketball, interestingly enough, the only professional sport that doesn't have an occult background is hockey. The guy who invented it, James Creighton, was a lawyer for the Canadian Senate back in the 1860s, but he has no known ties to Freemasonry or anything like that. But all the others, very foundation is Masonic, which means, and this is the point we have to understand, is that when we watch that and when we participate in that, we are lending our energy to these occult rituals. That's what we got to understand, beloved. We are giving our energy into these rituals that build power for it. Because I'm going to show you some stuff right now regarding what was going on in the World Cup and what this was really all about. Okay? So, we have here. All right, so let's go to just some interesting facts regarding, all right, what are we doing next? I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so let's talk about the World Cup final here, okay? And the fact that you have two guys in particular were in the final. Lionel Messi, and you also have Lamal. What's his first name here? Okay, well, let me just pull it up for you. All right, so that's the World Cup ball. Okay, we're done with that. Yeah, here we go. So we have the winning goal was scored by a guy by name Torres, but Yamin Lamal and Lionel Messi were the two guys that were profiled in this. Okay, so Messi plays for Argentina. They were the defending champs. And Yamal played for Spain, and he also plays for Barcelona. So did Messi. Barcelona was Messi's professional team. All right. So let's look at a couple of things here. Messi and Yamal both wore number 19 for Barcelona. Okay. Let me see if I can find that for you. No, not there. There we go. Okay, so let me pull this up for you here. Going to share screen. Okay. All right. So here we go with Messi when he played for Barcelona, number 19, and Lamine Yamal, he wears number 19. Okay. So that's a little weird. And you have, now this was, here's some interesting facts. So Messi was born on the 24th of June, which is the day that St. John the Baptist was born, who baptized Yeshua like Messi did with Yamal. Because here's a picture from 19 years ago. Messi, when he was younger, is bathing a baby Yamal. Now, how on earth did this happen? What's going on here? So his parents, Lamine Yamal's parents, apparently won this raffle to have a picture with Messi, who is a young up-and-coming star right now. And so they get this picture with him, but why is he bathing him? Isn't it a little weird that this guy, is bathing this baby? So Messi switched to number 10 last year, and now Yamal inherits the number 10, so he's following along in his footsteps. Their birthdays are 19 days apart. Yamal just turned 19. And what we also have is the kind of the passing of the torch. So Messi is considered the GOAT, which is an acronym for the greatest of all time, right? Well, here you have Lamine Yamal being crowned as the new king. But here's something that's really weird. You have this advertisement for Messi being the GOAT and Lamine Yamal being the heir apparent, the new GOAT, greatest of all time. Well, is that true? What is the symbolism of the GOAT? Well, if you go into it, you can see that Messi being associated with the GOAT is part of Freemasonry. It's Baphomet, the goat's head. Rolling Stones had an album actually called Goat's Head Soup, which is very interesting. Rolling Stones also famously have a song called Sympathy for the Devil, and they released a song back in the 90s that says, "You'll never make a saint out of me." Well, that's probably true. But here you have, and by the way, if you've never checked out the Vigilant Citizen website, it is phenomenal. This guy does some deep dives into the symbolism behind pop culture, and it'll blow your mind if that's what you're kind of interested in. But here you have a picture of, and it says here, "Are you a Freemason or are you a Mason?" And there's this ritual of a guy taking a bath with a goat. It's a Masonic initiation ritual. So let's go back up to Messi, the old GOAT, passing the baton or the torch to the new greatest of all time. And here he is bathing him. And by the way, look at the colors. You've got red and blue, which is the colors of Barcelona, or the colors of the Spanish team, rather. Okay? So there you have that. Let's go to the actual World Cup game. So you have the passing right of the GOAT from Messi to Yamal. Now, there is all kinds of video evidence for the blatant fixing of the games, that they wanted Messi to be in the final. Okay, and even Cristiano Ronaldo, who plays for Portugal, who is also a Freemason. I mean, he's been doing the one-eyed sign all kinds of times. But you have these, you have the officiating that is blatantly in favor of Argentina to get him to the final. There's a report that actually has also come out that said that Donald Trump himself, so first of all, there was a red card given to a U.S. player, and Trump petitioned the FIFA to reverse that. Okay? So you have political interference. But there's now also a report coming out that says that Trump threatened sanctions, which is one of his favorite tools, on Belgium if they beat Spain. What? A president of the host country threatening another country with economic sanctions if they beat the Spanish team. Now, why would Trump care which gets in? Because they had to go through with this ritual. All right? It gets weirder. You look at so Argentina, their symbol is on their flag is the sun. Well, you know, everything involved in Freemasonry is involved in sun worship, which is really Lucifer, because he is the son of the morning. Now, you want to take a look here at, here is a picture of the flag that was on the TV. Okay. So look down here. So you have Argentina winning, and you've got, whoa. Look at that. That's not the sun that's on the Argentine flag. That's the square and compass, the Masonic symbol. Here, let's look at it again. That is the square and compass. They switched it on screen. Now, you're not going to notice that. You're not going to notice that consciously, but subliminally, you're going to pick that up. And it's an initiation rite. They have subliminal messaging all the time. Disney is notorious for this. And I just read this incredible article about, the occult backgrounds of Walt Disney. Actually, Melina and I did a program about this last year. But look at that. You can see it right there. They're putting it right there. And look at all the tattoos that Messi has. And there's actually I think one of his tattoos is the Eye of Horus. So they're showing you right there. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. So, got that. And then, here, let's have a look at some of this officiating here. Okay. There is, this year, there was a bunch of sensors put into the ball so that they could track it and everything else. Well, let's have a look. Of where the ball is going.
Just the wind, or is?
All right, let's make sure that you can hear what they're. Whoops, sorry. That you can hear what they're saying too. Oh, okay. So it's sharing the audio. There we go.
Is there something inside?
Incredible. During this 2026 World Cup semi-final,
the World Cup ball is behaving strangely. The ball suddenly changes direction just before Emi Martinez catches it. The World Cup ball is behaving strangely. The ball suddenly changes direction just before Emi Martinez catches it. Then
and here the ball switches direction. They're fixing this. They're controlling which way the ball is going.
And goes out of play again. What do you think? Was it just the wind, or is there something inside this ball? The World Cup ball is behaving.
Well, they know that there was something inside this ball. Okay. I mean, honestly. So by the way, going back to the number 19, you have So you've got all this symbolism with 19 years. Yamal just turned. You've got 19 days between their birthdays. There's 19 years between them. And, actually a little more than that. But so 19 is all over the place. And you've got the ritual of bathing with Freemasonry. This isn't entirely a Freemason. It's a Masonic ritual. If you look at some of the, the goings on in with the halftime. There's never been a halftime show, so they do that in the Super Bowl. But now they've got it in the World Cup, and here we can show you. Okay, so here's some of the symbolism with the actual game itself. Okay, so you've got here, that's the trophy. Again, two people morphing together with the ball in ascension. You've got a bunch of Aztecs, and this looks like a big pyramid. And so the Aztecs were, of course, and the Incas were notorious for human sacrifice. Okay. Let's look at some of the, again, you've got a Mexican artist here, again, with all of that. And then you have one of the singers, Belinda. Don't know who she is, but what is she flashing? The Illuminati pyramid, right? Abundantly clear. You've got the flags that are kind of shaped with the all-seeing eye right in the middle. So this is between France and the United States. Okay, it looks like a big eye. So what are all these people doing here? They are contributing. See, when people get together, remember, what was the point of social distancing during COVID? It was to keep people more than 6 feet apart, which is where heartbeats can connect with each other. So if you're keeping people further apart than that, they're not able to connect with one another. And so you've got all these people coming together. Their energies are creating this mass power that is going toward whatever this is behind this ritual. Okay? Now, let's look at the game. So here Ronaldo is saying on Instagram, thing was totally fixed. Well, he would have known that for a long time. All right? Let's look at the game itself. So here's the greatest of all time, the GOAT. And how many shots did Messi get during his final game on the world stage? None. 0 shots. In fact, Argentina, in almost 2 hours of play, didn't get 1 shot. The entire team didn't get 1 shot. This was a humiliation ritual. And then you look at what happened with, you can even see, actually, Messi in the warm-up. He was intentionally missing, so you can see him warming up. He kept missing the net. Okay? And then you have this massive fight that breaks out between Argentina and Spain. When the Spanish were receiving the medals, the Argentinians had their backs to them. It was all scripted chaos. You can see here, they got their backs while the Spaniards are receiving their medals. Okay? You got Messi who's crying because it was a humiliation ritual. You got people petitioning to have Argentina kicked out of the World Cup. Bread and circuses. And you've got Yamal being crowned the new king. So, what is the point of all this? The point is that nothing about this is real. This wasn't just a bunch of guys who were playing an honest game between each other. this was a massive occult ritual that we take part in. Oh, The Economist magazine, which was released last year. Let me see if I can find that now. Too many. Did I close the screen? Yeah, I think I might have. So let's see if we can pull that up here. So you have the Economist magazine, which is an occult. All right. Let's pull up an image here. There it is. Okay. So let's see if we can shed a little light on this here as to, and this is the elite. This is what they, well, I don't call them elite. They're depraved actually, but here. So let's share that. Oops. And so here you have all these different things that are happening. There we go. That's a bit of a better picture. And so you got war, you've got Donald Trump launching missiles into Iran. But look who's down here at the bottom. And isn't that, you look at here, that pose is almost identical to how Torres scored the winning goal. Almost identical. And you can see here that you have blue and red, which is the Spanish colors. And there was a children's book that was published on June 2nd. So June 2nd or 6th. It was, so the World Cup starts on June 14th. So the children's book, the game we play, is published on June 2nd or 6th, 2 weeks almost before the start of the World Cup. And they have Argentina and Spain in the final, with Spain winning 2-1. So the score wasn't exact, but they already knew who was going to be in. They already knew. So when it comes to professional sports, soccer, baseball, football, basketball, all started by Freemasons or occultists. And every single one of them is an occult ritual that we are getting suckered into participating in. And so when people get together and they they lend their energy to this, they give of themselves, it's almost as if it's a worship thing. That's why Christmas is so dangerous. That's why Easter is so dangerous. And if you haven't looked at my book yet, The Red Mark on God's Forehead, you can see it right here. You need to learn about the foundations of the holidays that we celebrate. Okay? Get a copy of this book here. You need to understand what it is that you're participating in, because if you don't, then you are unknowingly participating in a worship ritual to a pagan god. That's how serious this is. And the reason why billions of people around the world are drawn into this almost in a frenzy is because there is a spirit behind this. Professional sports is not, listen, I'm all for playing sports. I love playing sports. I take my son out. We play, we throw the ball around. We play baseball, and he was in a baseball league last year. So a bunch of kids get together and we would go out and cheer him on and everything else. That's great. Except that with a lot of these sports, because they were designed by Masons, now you can go have a pickup game of football or something like that, and you're not going to have the refs in the black and white doing the Masonic symbol of raising the hands and having the hash marks 18 feet apart at the schoolyard that you may be playing at the park. But even then, I might be praying against any attachment that these things have, because you cannot separate an activity from its spiritual foundation. And if Walter Camp was a skull and bones man, then everything about American football is occultic. And if James Naismith was a Freemason, then everything about the game of basketball has occultic background to it. If you're going to play it, you pray against that and ask God that he would block off any attachment to this, because we just want to have a fun game. But certainly when it comes to the professional class of sports people, there's nothing to be had with this for us. There's nothing in it for us. We are being distracted from being about the Father's business with this stuff. And I come to you in this as one who was a huge sports fan and loved participating in this stuff. But once I came to realize that, number one, it was all fixed, and number two, that you have the foundations are nothing but an occult ritual designed to get you into a temple. The very dimensions of these professional sports stadiums. You know, interestingly enough, Sky Dome, or what's now Rogers Center at in Toronto, it was the first retractable roof on a professional stadium. And it's a dome. And what is it built? Right beside the CN Tower. And so you have the phallus of Osiris, and you have the womb, male and female genitalia. You have that with the Washington Monument and the Rotunda. You have that with the in St. Peter's Square. You have the church, and then you have again, you know, this phallic symbol, these obelisks. You're participating in a ritual. So I pray that this has been instructive for you, and I pray that you don't. I pray that this helps you to understand that what we are being drawn into is not so innocent, and that we need to divest ourselves of the things of this world. We are to be in the world, but not of it. And when we participate in professional sports activities, whether as a fan or buying their merchandise, we are contributing to the paganism of our society. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. I trust this has been instructive for you. And please leave some comments, whether this has been helpful or not. I'd love to hear back, and because we always like to know whether the material that we're covering has been a blessing to you. So on that note, we'll bid you adieu and wish you a Shavua Tov. Have a great week, and we'll look forward to seeing you right here next week on the threshing floor here on lambnetwork.tv. Bye-bye.
I won't run from the crushing. I'll hold on through the pain. What I lose means nothing.
If you missed today's show, or want to watch it again, or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lambnetwork.tv, where you can find this show and all the other live Lamb Show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network.
I just wanna be your sanctuary, a dwelling place for grace and mercy. Keep sifting me till everything is on the threshing floor.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take a tour of the lambnetwork.tv website. I'm Darryl Weinberg, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.